Welcome to Nerdsplain, a comic book podcast for every level of nerd. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, make sure you leave us a review. As always, I am House. I am joined today by my four other horsemen of the nerd apocalypse. As always, we've got Jess.
Hello.
Greg.
What's going on, everyone?
Our boy Dave.
I'm the stylish one of the group.
And today, welcoming for the first time, the new addition to our team. You're going to see his bio and picture up on our website here very shortly. He's going to be taking care of some of our social media stuff. He's going to be coming in here as an expert on some topics. This is our boy from the Lou, Gerry Wookie Bay.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. We're all so excited to have Gerry here, and we can't wait to have him on more episodes. Today's topic is actually going to be coming to us from a call-in from the Nerdsplain helpline, which, as always, that phone number is 805-669-7230. Again, 805-669-7230. We're going to play the voicemail that was left for us by our friend Wolfman.
Hi, this is Wolfman. Yeah, after digging around on your guys' page, I came across your hotline for quick questions here, and I hope maybe this is a quick one for you. I am thinking about getting back into reading some more comics again, especially thanks to your show giving me a little more want on the subjects. So I'm thinking about maybe getting into The Punisher. I always kind of dug Frank Castle, want to learn more about him. So my question to you would be, if someone is going to get back into reading comics, does it behoove them at all to go ahead and buy individual copies? Or like the novels, where it's like, I think that's what they're called, where it's every book for that series is in one book. I don't know as far as, is it worth resale value to go one way or another? Or if I'm just wanting to learn the story, does it make more sense to go ahead and do the novel? I appreciate your guys' help. Thank you, guys.
So, as you kind of got from that, we are going to be talking Punisher today. The Man in Black. Gerry, what are some nicknames for the Punisher?
I always call him Frankie Boy.
Frankie Boy.
Yeah.
Frankie Boy. So, I know some about the Punisher. Dave knows some about the Punisher. Gerry knows lots about the Punisher. Jess and Greg, as our blank slates, what are some questions that are burning holes, similar to what Wolfman had there? We can get into, where should someone start reading? Should they go invest in single issues? Should they just pick up trades? But let's talk about who Frank Castle is. What questions do you guys have?
Well, first of all, is Frank Castle Marvel or DC?
Oh, that's a good question. He's actually Marvel. His first appearance is teaming up with the villain named Jackal to try to kill Spider-Man, and that would be an Amazing Spider-Man issue number 129, released in 1974.
So he showed up in the Punisher showed up in Spider-Man first.
Yeah,
teaming up. So he was trying to hunt Spider-Man, or was he just like an assassin trying to kill Peter Parker?
What?
Yeah. His actual, during the first draft of this issue, he was actually called the Assassin.
Oh.
But Stan Lee didn't think the Assassin had a redeemable name to him, so they switched him to the Punisher later. Before it was released. And yeah, so he's actually hired to kill Peter Parker by a character named Jackal.
Oh, wow.
Because Jackal's saying Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, killed, I want to say, Norman Osborn at this point. So the Jackal's like, hey, Punisher, he's a really bad guy. Go take care of him. And Punisher, doing what Punisher does, goes, okay, and goes to try to kill Spider-Man.
So, at that point then, you said it was, which issue number?
129.
129. Oh, yeah, that would have been like 5 issues after, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, out there in the universe. I want to say that's only like 5 issues after the death of Gwen Stacy, and when Spider-Man hunts down the Green Goblin for that and beats him to about an inch of his life.
Yeah.
And yeah, Norman Osborn, as I recall, does die from that. I have a question though.
Yeah.
Is the Punisher a Stan Lee creation, or was it somebody else?
No, Stan Lee at this time was the editor of Marvel. He was originally created by Gerry Conway and Ross Andru, I want to say you pronounce his last name. But the design of the Punisher was John Romita Sr.
Oh, so he's the one we have to thank for the white go-go boots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because originally...
Wait. Who is that?
John Romita Sr.?
Yeah.
Well, he is the father of the famous John Romita Jr., who is also a comic book artist. John Romita Jr., the last thing I remember him doing, like most recently, was he did a run on Superman that I couldn't have disagreed with more visually. Other than but so Dave, you know that.
So John Romita Sr. Is anytime you think of the classic looks of a lot of your Marvel heroes from like the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and well forward. I may be wrong about the 60s. Most of those looks, or how you see them in your head, is John Romita Sr. designs.
Gotcha.
That is just, when you think of, okay, what does Spider-Man look like? And you're thinking Spider-Man that has the red, the blue, a lot of the webbing, but not the web wings, John Romita Sr. Your Captain America, where it's more of the sort of chainmail-ish or feathering on the chest.
Okay.
John Romita Sr.
The scale look.
Yeah, that sort of scale look.
Wow.
What's up?
And that's actually when they first designed Punisher, he only had a small little skull over his chest.
Oh.
And then when John Romita Sr. took over, he blew that skull up, and he's like, no, now that's...
Oh.
But he kept the go-go boots.
He kept the go-go.
blow up the skull. He needs to look badass.
Exactly.
He needs to look like after work he could go dancing if he needs
Exactly.
to.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, he has pre-Labor Day Punisher, and then he wears black boots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's conscious.
He's very fashion savvy.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like he had a pet rock.
so we know, where he came from. What about his backstory? Like, what happened?
Okay, I'm gonna try not to cry while telling this. So his backstory changes depending on which timeline you read, but for the most part, it is the same. He's a war veteran, have it be World War I, Vietnam, or the new Middle Eastern War. When he comes home, he does a picnic with his family, and a gang shootout happens. His family gets just slaughtered in front of him. He lives. One thing that's constant is he lets the police try to do their job.
Okay.
And every time when they fail, he's like, okay, my turn. I'm a war guy. I know how to go to war. And he just goes after criminals.
Wow.
My question in there about his family dying, has there been changes or the consistency on like his wife and then like how many kids he had, or was it
Same question.
Because like in the Thomas Jane Punisher from 2006, yeah, 2006. Like I do thoroughly enjoy that movie. I'm sure we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But in that, it was his wife Maria and son, who I don't know,
Frank Jr.
Frank Jr. Okay, was it? And then in Warzone, I think they kept the consistent, but then I couldn't remember if they changed that for like the Netflix series.
If you remember, actually, so yeah, in the comics he has two kids.
Okay.
Frank Jr. and the girl's name usually changes.
Okay.
In the Thomas Jane movie, if you remember, before the shootout happens, his wife does say she is pregnant. So technically, there is two kids in that too.
Oh,
well, we're not going to get into a whole debate on because I'm sorry.
We're talking Punisher. We're talking when life ends, actually.
Yeah. And then in the Netflix show, yes, he has two kids again.
Okay.
So yeah,
okay.
it's typically wife, two kids, boy, girl. Usually it's Frank Jr. So
your standard nuclear family.
Yeah, your standard American just family. Vietnam war vet of some type of family.
Okay, so that makes sense that he would have been a non-vet in the 80s.
Yeah.
That would have been... I mean, I guess that would have made the most sense for him to have been a non-vet.
Yes.
And then...
60s, he would have been a World War II vet. When was he a World War I vet?
In the short series of Marvel Noir.
Oh! What was Marvel Noir again?
Oh, man. Marvel Noir was neat. It was I don't know how they picked the team of writers or anything like that, but they just took certain characters from the Marvel Universe and put them in these film noir, times and styles. So most of the comics, if I recall correctly, were black and white.
Right.
The characters had complete redesigns of their looks. Some of them were very good.
Oh, is that where the steampunk Spider-Man came from?
Yeah, the Spider-Man that's like in like a black mask with like the goggles.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's Spider-Man Noir. That was actually a really good one. Daredevil Noir was really good. Some of them fell a bit flat. I think they did an X-Men Noir or Wolverine Noir that wasn't that great. But they had Daredevil, Spider-Man, Punisher, Luke Cage was one.
Yeah, Luke Cage was one.
I can't remember all the other ones.
And technically in Punisher Noir, Frank gets killed, and it's Frank Jr. that takes up the mantle.
Oh, wow.
Frank is still a World War I vet, so there is a slight change in character there, but for the most part, it stays the same.
Okay, gotcha.
So you guys mentioned about, I guess, the gang shootout. So is that also something that changed? Like, did Frank do something to where the gang came after him and his family, or was it just something happened like on their street and then their house?
I read up in my research that he was at a park, and like a pretty public park at the time, and he ran into what was going on.
It's usually Central Park.
Okay.
Yeah. In New York.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't in their neighborhood.
Yeah, no. For the most part, they're just there. Spoilers, of course, going on for the Netflix Punisher show. I'm weird about spoilers, so I have to throw that out there. In the Punisher show, he is the target. So that's the only time that he is the target. And with the Thomas Jane movie, he's the target. But for the most part, he's having a picnic after coming home from war with his family. Right. And then life takes course.
Well, what about the Dolph Lundgren one from 1989? Was he the target?
That's like Indiana Jones 4 for me.
Oh! Wait, so he was
Dolph Lundgren fighting the Yakuza, and the Punisher is blonde and riding a motorcycle.
Yeah.
How is that like Indiana Jones 4?
Oh, it's because it's actually...
Dolph Lundgren, I respect you immensely, by the way. Don't get me wrong.
It's because they were alien Yakuza.
Oh,
right?
okay,
It was
yeah,
crystal alien Yakuza. Yeah. That's how it's like Indiana Jones 4. I got it. Makes sense.
So, does that make him a hero or a villain? Like he's...
Or in between, like an anti-hero.
I consider him a hero majorly. But every time I tell people that, they give me a weird look and they go, but he kills people. How can that be a hero?
Well, I think...
Is it this look?
Yeah, the look Dave's giving me right now.
Is it because, okay, when you mention, because I think a cornerstone, for me anyway, a cornerstone for an anti-hero is they're a hero only for the context of their story. In anybody else's story, they are the bad guy. And yeah, I mean, I can understand the look of, that you get from saying that, okay, he is a hero. Do you have an example of why you would consider him a hero?
Well, I mean, I guess it also depends on what you define as a hero, because if you think of like Spider-Man, he's a hero because he saves the day. Well, what is he saving people from? from harm's way. Well, Frank Castle, he does the same thing, except he kind of permanently...
Exactly. That's what I love about it. In the Netflix show, he actually states it perfectly when he's talking to Daredevil. He goes, you hit them and they get back up. I hit them and they stay down. It's permanent. I make sure they don't make it out on the street again.
Wow.
I take pride on that. And to me, that's like, yep, he's cleaning the streets out. He's a good guy. When he fights Captain America, when he fights Daredevil, he doesn't fight them to end them, except for one storyline when he ends everyone.
Well, he won't swing on Cap.
No, he won't. He just...
Is it out of respect?
Yeah, it's
right?
out of respect. He's Cap is a war hero too, right. So he's just like, nope, I won't do it.
Well, let me ask you this.
In that quote from the Daredevil TV show is lifted directly, like word for word from Daredevil comics. Actually, Daredevil Punisher, I have it on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And yes, Punisher won't swing on Cap. Cap will sure as shooting swing on the Punisher. Yeah. It happens in Marvel Civil War, and it's an odd moment. I've never seen Cap snap at the sight of somebody. He's so... And that's the thing. Like, when we talk about the definition of an anti-hero, to me, anti-hero, the way I've always thought about it, is an anti-hero is a hero that uses villainous means. Yes. Oh, okay. So, by virtue of the murdering, of the killing, that is using a less than heroic method to perform what would otherwise be considered heroic deeds. And I mean, Frank's not the only hero that's ever killed somebody.
No.
Not in Marvel or DC.
No.
He just has no qualms about it.
At all.
He never has a moment of, oh man, I wonder if I should have done that. He never has that Unforgiven Clint Eastwood moment where he thinks to himself, it's a funny thing killing a man. You take away everything he's ever been and everything he's going to be. He's just like, no, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm going to go have a taco.
Yep. Greg, you were about to say something, Greg.
Yeah, so my question for that would be, okay, so let me see if I can formulate this in the correct way. Okay, so Frank Castle, yeah, he's killed before. He's going to continue to kill. That's his prerogative. But just like how Spider-Man went through his tragedy with Ben Parker, that kind of formed the person he became, right? So Frank Castle, his whole thing was just to the extreme. So if for him killing was the only justification for him, I mean, that's just how he became who he was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he says multiple times war is the only thing he knows.
Right. And that's just a casualty of war.
Absolutely. And war hit his family. He's like, okay, I don't know what else to do but to go back to war. And he took it to the New York streets.
He just created, he picked a villain that he saw on the front page.
Yeah.
He wasn't given an order to find a villain. It was there in his face anyway.
Well, you know who else does that? Brooks in the Shawshank Redemption and a number of criminals. They become institutionalized. Also, certain retail workers when they've gotten away for so long.
Okay, so my next question is, so for Spider-Man, right? Because it seems like Spider-Man has a lot of characters in his adventures. So do a lot of characters get introduced into Spider-Man? Because I didn't know that Frank Castle was in Spider-Man. That was news to me.
Yeah, a lot of characters do get introduced in Spider-Man, especially Punisher characters. Like his main villain, Jigsaw, gets introduced in Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. The more you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like, Punisher didn't have a solo story until mid-'80s. He just spent his time bouncing between Spider-Man, Cap, Nightcrawler, which I haven't been able to read yet, and then Daredevil before he gets his solo series.
The X-Men Nightcrawler?
Yeah, X-Men Nightcrawler.
Oh.
He has a crossover with him.
Wow.
I can't find it anywhere, so I'm not sure what it is,
okay,
but it looks cool.
Wow.
But if you know where to find it,
Please.
make sure you hit us up on the Nerdsplayed helpline.
For sure. Now, yeah, because the same thing with the Kingpin. I thought the Kingpin was a Spider-Man thing, but then, you know, Daredevil came out and was like, oh, is that the same Kingpin or is this a different one? But it's the same.
Daredevil appropriated the Kingpin.
Okay.
As much as they, you know, as they really wanted Kingpin to be a Spider-Man villain, he became a much bigger issue and a more influential presence in Daredevil comics. You know, shared universe. I guess you get to play with those rules.
Okay.
And yeah, so eventually it was like, oh yeah, we have the Spider-Man villain. We'll let him hop into Daredevil comics. And then Frank Miller went, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we introduce him and then ruin Matt Murdock's whole life?
Now, when it comes to like the Punisher, was he known as the Punisher or was he known as something different?
He is known as the Punisher. His villains know him as the Punisher. His allies know him as the Punisher. I like viewing it as Frank Castle died with his family and then became the Punisher. Because, he doesn't keep a lot of connections around. And what Dave was saying about shared universe, Punisher's really lucky to be a part of a shared universe.
Okay.
Because without villains from Spider-Man or Daredevil, he wouldn't have many villains because he kills everybody.
This is true. Because his long-standing villain is Jigsaw, correct?
Jigsaw and Maud Nucci.
Okay, so how accurately? Because we got Jigsaw in Punisher Warzone with the who played Punisher in that one, Dave?
In Punisher Warzone, that was Ray Stevenson. I loved him.
So we got Punisher. We got Jigsaw in that one.
Yeah.
How accurate was that one? Or was the Netflix series more accurate? Like, how was there really a relationship there or not?
I love what Netflix did with Billy Russo, aka Jigsaw.
Okay.
Because Billy Russo is a brother, quote unquote, of Frank Castle in the Netflix series. In the comics and in Warzone, Jigsaw is a mobster hitman who only meets Frank Castle after Frank's the Punisher.
Oh, okay.
So the brotherhood, bonding, and like deep emotional connection between the two that you see in the Netflix series was created for the Netflix series, and it's fantastic.
It is a lot. I mean, it adds a lot of layers of glass to that.
I see what you did.
Actually, I had a question regarding his villains. Back in the early 1990s, 1990 or 91, the ever so popular creators of the best video games for the Nintendo, LJN, made one good game based on the Punisher. And the main villain, the final boss in that video game is Kingpin.
Mm.
How much of a presence has Kingpin ever really been in the Punisher? And then by extension, I know in the Punisher Max, they introduced they had a whole storyline with Bullseye. They had a whole storyline with Kingpin. Outside of the Max universe, have Bullseye and Kingpin really ever popped up in Punisher?
A few times. Kingpin pops up in a story arc called The Final Days. But for the most part, Frank is within himself with his villains. In the most recent, or not most recent, but one of the recent runs by Edmondson, he runs into Spider-Man's villain, Shocker. And that's a weird battle. Yeah. But yeah, so Kingpin is mainly Daredevil side that crosses in every so often.
Okay. Gotcha.
You mentioned Final Days. Let's blow Greg's mind here for a moment.
Okay, how do you want to... So, The Final Days is let me get
early 90s?
Early 90s run. It's 7 issues where Kingpin comes in and kidnaps the Punisher's friend, Micro, and starts hacking off fingers of Micro to get the Punisher to kill one of Kingpin's rivals. Yeah, Kingpin, or Frank Castle, ends up going to jail, and in jail he runs into his other villain, Jigsaw.
Okay.
And Jigsaw does some damage to him. Punisher gets out, like, Jigsaw makes his face, Frank Castle's face, look like Jigsaw's face, if that makes sense.
Oh.
So, when he gets out of jail, finally escapes, he needs to get facial reconstructive surgery.
Right.
And how do I word this, Jess?
So
Jess, you say it.
He is in search for a doctor who is a doctor turned drug addict.
Okay.
Greg sounds terrified right now.
I don't know what I'm in
So
for.
he's remodeling his face, removing scarring, and making him unrecognizable to his enemies, right?
Is that the goal?
That's the goal.
Okay.
He's pretty darn unrecognizable because he comes out black.
He's not going to be laughing.
Soon Greg is going to do a complete 180.
He's going to be sad. Get that soak in for it.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on.
You ever gone under the knife and woke up black?
He intentionally goes in Caucasian. It comes out a brother man.
He didn't plan that.
Yeah, he planned on facial surgery to be Frank again. It's the doctor's choice to make
Did he
him.
not have a photo to go off of? Did he?
He did, but it was Lamont from Samson.
Apparently it was a photo negative to go off of.
So
Do-do-do-do.
we're not done with this story yet.
Oh, there's more to this story.
There's more to this
Oh,
story.
there's more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So he leaves, and I don't know how shortly after because I just did some quick research, but
It's shortly after. He's still heavily medicated from the surgery.
he's driving like a madman and gets pulled over by the cops.
So he straight up.
He's black and driving like an asshole because he's heavily medicated.
Clearly drugged out driving.
So he gets pulled over.
Okay.
The cop cops beat him for driving while black.
Yeah, it's a big part of the storyline that the police pull him over. Yeah,
and is that why they beat him though, or
more or less that is why they beat him?
Wow,
they were being very socially aware, I guess, making this statement.
Wait, when did this come out?
Before today's 90s, early 90s,
92, I think.
Wasn't there that the Johnny Cochran, not Johnny Cochran, the
Rodney King?
Yeah, Rodney King.
Yeah, I was about to say that's right around that Rodney King.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rodney King riots.
He actually gets saved in that fight by Luke Cage.
Yeah, and then they eventually team up.
So the Punisher in this case became a black man. There's actually multiple times where the Punisher leaves Frank Castle and becomes somebody else.
Okay.
There's a brief period he becomes Captain America, like Frank Castle as Captain America.
Instead of the star on his head, he had the Punisher skull.
Oh, yeah, on his chest and shield. That's right after the comic book Civil War happened.
No, wait, he had another surgery to look like? or no?
No, he's them by costume only.
Oh, okay. I thought he got addicted
black?
to surgeries and.
No, he's back to being the Caucasian Frank.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Now, how did they pull that off?
I don't know. It's.
So, Civil War ended, spoiler alert, for an event that happened 13 years ago with the death of Captain America.
Oh.
No, I think she's how did he not become black anymore?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm asking the hard question.
I think how did he become Cap? I'm like, well, Cap died.
No,
He just went, I'm Cap now, and everyone went,
yeah, more or less. And then he does pass it off to Bucky, who takes over the role. At one point, Punisher becomes War Machine, Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange.
War Machine right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's currently War Machine and Ghost Rider right now.
Oh.
Yeah, he's Ghost Rider in the future.
Who, Punisher is?
Yeah, Punisher is
Jesus.
Yeah, he gets
hell's gonna get full up.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah,
all right, we need here. Let's slow it down for because we just jumped around a whole lot of places.
Yes.
To wrap up, how did the Punisher not become black anymore? Thing, the story ended, and then as comics do, they just that was that little story.
Okay.
Thing.
Okay.
Now we just move on. That was Tuesday's over. We're good.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then to the Civil War stuff. Yeah, at the end of Civil War, Cap takes a bullet. Cap dies. All of Marvel Comics is in mourning. Punisher having the respect for who Cap was, he picks up the shield. He changed. He didn't kill as many people as he just whipped some ass.
He knew Cap wouldn't want him to tarnish Captain America's name,
but he felt there needed to be Captain America.
Yeah, but he also felt people needed to die.
So in Marvel Comics,
he's the only one that was okay with that idea too.
Yeah,
because Tony was pissed.
Yes, he was.
Bucky wanted nothing to do with it, and Hawkeye was livid.
Yes, he was. He's actually part of the reason Frank Castle convinces Bucky to take over as Cap.
I remember that. I remember the scenes of Hawkeye convincing Bucky.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, "Bucky, it's got to be you, man."
So
they became Captain Puerto Rico.
So to touch base on where we're at with Punisher currently. So currently in the comics,
yes,
he's Ghost Rider. Let's start there. How did he become the?
He's currently Ghost Rider in the Thanos series going on currently.
Oh, okay.
Which takes place in the future. We find out in one of the final battles of Earth that Thanos throws Hulk into a building. The building falls on the Punisher, and he's like, "I need to get my vengeance." Mephisto shows up and goes, "Okay, you're now Ghost Rider." And so I want to say that was the last issue, so we'll see how he is as Ghost Rider here soon. That's going to be fun. But in current timeline, Nick Fury Jr. hires Frank Castle to go get a package from a military base and bring it back to him. And that package is the War Machine armor. When Frank sees it, he's like, "Okay, that's mine." And he doesn't give it back to Nick Fury Jr. That's a mouthful there. So he just keeps the suit and becomes War Machine, aka Punisher, and it's a good suit for the Punisher. Does well for him.
Did he paint the skull?
He does.
Oh, okay. Well, you gotta keep the theme.
Like him as War Machine worries me. He's like, "Hey,